You Can Do Both podcast. This is Court.
And this is Ashley, and we're coming at you live from Boston for the first of our very exciting new series.
Guys, we're starting a wedding series.
Woo!
So crazy. Like, truly preparing for this episode, I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm doing all of these things. I'm about to do all of these things. I'm actually getting married.
Court's engagement night, like when I finally saw her and we hugged and tears were flowing, I was like, the content that You Can Do Both is about to have. Like, I'm so excited to talk all things weddings, even though it has nothing to do with me. I'm just like really excited because I am so unfamiliar with these topics, and I think it's a very exciting time that honestly people love to talk about.
I know. I mean, I have been consuming wedding content since I was, I don't know, 15.
Yeah, how old were you when you watched your first wedding video?
100%. Like in high school, probably fantasizing about my high
Wedding with
school
Justin
boyfriend.
Bieber? Oh.
No. I thought you were going to say my ex's name on the podcast.
No.
The way my heart just dropped into my stomach.
Not on the wedding series.
No, I know. Yeah, probably when Justin Bieber entered my life. But yeah, if you don't know this about me, I have been obsessed with weddings. I have always dreamed of like getting married at a relatively young age, having a young family, etc. But unfortunately, outside of that, like that's all in which I know. I know what a good wedding video looks like. I have certain favorite moments of a wedding. But I'm not the type of person that has had their wedding planned for their whole lives. I've never had a Pinterest board dedicated to a wedding. And if I did, there's no way it would still be reflective of what I'd want in my current day and age. I think I do have like a wedding Pinterest board that's like super general from when I was in middle school or something.
Yeah.
And I looked at it now and I was like, oh my God, vomit at all of these things because how quickly things change.
That's what scares me the most about wedding planning, because you want to be able to look back on this day and not be like
cringing.
Oh, I wish I didn't do that. But it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Like the way the trends go.
Yeah. It will always be that way.
Yeah.
I feel like you can look at a wedding and be like, that was 2016. That was 2012. Like simply from the dress alone.
Yeah.
This series will be fun. For the first episode, we really just want to talk about how to start planning a wedding. And also, since I'm not really actively planning the wedding yet, I'm very much in the beginning phases. I did a lot of research of asking people in my life that have gotten married what their favorite parts of their wedding were, what they would recommend in terms of advice for a future bride, and then also asking like the biggest element to not spend time, money, or energy on. So elements to forego if you're planning a wedding. So I asked them best family friends. I asked them both-ers on Instagram, and there was so much like excitement around those questions. I've never seen so much engagement.
It was the most engaged the both-ers have ever been, and exactly why I'm so excited to start this series.
I actually think there's 3 girls that exist once they get engaged.
Let's talk about it.
The first girl is someone who has had their wedding planned in their mind. Honestly, I've been seeing people that have their wedding venue booked like the day they got engaged, if not before they actually got engaged, which is crazy to me.
My coworker got engaged and literally booked the venue like within the month.
Yeah. No.
It's crazy. But she wasn't even Bridezilla energy either. She just grew up in New England, knew she wanted to do it on the Cape. Like, some people know exactly the location. Like, of course, this is where I've always dreamed of having my wedding. Of course it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And honestly, kind of jealous of that when you can just like lock it down and you know exactly what you want.
Truly. Then there's a second type of girl that I think you may resonate with. The girl that doesn't really like care to plan a big wedding, prefers to do something really small with the immediate family, or even entertaining the idea of like an elopement, just happy to be with the person, doesn't need any of the theatrics involved.
Yes. Now, I've been seeing a lot on the internet. Before I got engaged, oh, I don't care about this, I don't care about this. After I get engaged, we need this. And like the switch up, I'm really hoping that does not happen to me. However, I could also see myself like on the drop of a hat, or what's the term?
That's it.
The drop of a hat, being like, you know what? Screw it. We're gonna have a huge
crazy
freaking wedding. I could see a world in which that is my path.
I think you're gonna see my wedding and be like, this is enough.
Yeah. Okay, enough about me. And who is the third type of person?
Third type of person is the girl that's excited about all of the things and truly just has no idea where to start. This is the girl that I particularly resonate with. And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, maybe this means that there's no shot I would be like a bridezilla because I'm just so go with the flow. Like, I am not going to have very strong opinions about anything. Like, truly, in my ideal world, I just show up to my wedding and I have no idea what's happening. I don't know what's planned. Like, as long as it's beautiful and my people are there, and then there are a certain list of non-negotiables. But outside of that, that would be my ideal situation. But then I was also thinking, because I'm so like indecisive or maybe don't have such strong opinions, it might make this process even harder because I'm stressed about like not knowing the right thing. So yeah. Time will tell.
Time will tell. I think it can go one of two ways, but I think if you go into it with the mindset of, you know what, it's going to end up perfect.
Yeah.
These are just, and when you're torn between a decision, like, that's where I come in.
True.
Who needs Matt when you have me?
True. No, truly. As part of my research for this episode and my planning in general, I've been listening to a lot of like influencers that have recently gotten married's podcasts where they talk about like their planning, what went down, and honestly, like there's not enough details in them. So this series is going to be like hyper focused. I'm not gatekeeping anything. Like I don't feel a particular way about not wanting to share certain details. Like maybe as we get closer, I might want to keep some things to myself, but it's not like we have millions of followers and people are going to be following everything that I'm doing. So y'all will get all the details that you want and more, hopefully.
All right, let's jump into it. So you've been engaged for roughly 4 months now.
Crazy.
Which is pretty wild. Why do I feel like it happened yesterday?
I couldn't agree more.
As far as wedding planning goes, did you guys have discussions, obviously, before? Like where you wanted the wedding, what you had in mind, or was it more of something that happened after the engagement?
It's so crazy when we think about it because we've been engaged for 4 months. But we actually knew what we wanted to do for our wedding 4 months into knowing each other, which is quite wild. So basically, we met in February. And then I had a work trip planned for Europe in June. And Matt, in his profession, is required to take like a 2 to 3 weeks off of work at one time. And he had this time to take, he was planning to take in the summer. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in Paris. You're welcome to join me if you want. How crazy.
It's so crazy. It's honestly so romantic.
I know. Well, my thought was like, I already know I have such strong feelings for this man. We also said I love you before that trip too. Like we said I love you. We were going through our timeline a couple of nights ago and I was like, that's kind of crazy. Like wild. Anyway, we digress. I invited him to meet me in Europe and my thought process was, well, if this doesn't work out, at least we know that like we can't travel together because traveling with somebody says so much. Long story short, he met me in Paris. Then we ended up gallivanting Europe together for a couple of weeks. And we found ourselves in Bordeaux, which is the wine region of France. We were on a vineyard tour, and we ended up being on this same tour as a group of like 5 girlfriends that were in their 20s. And I learned their whole life story. We also follow each other on Instagram, like truly so fun. The reason they were in France and on that wine tour is because they were in France for their best friend's wedding. So the bride was from Newport Beach, California. The groom was from Australia, and they wanted to pick a neutral place to have a wedding. So what their week looked like was they all started in a joint bachelorette trip in Nice, France. Then they had a couple of days off where they were then going to meet in Bordeaux at a chateau to have the wedding at with all the rest of the family, etc. And so I was hearing this and Matt and I looked at each other and we were like, immediately yes. Like we're going to do something like that because Matt and I both come from really large families and Some may say selfish. When I say some, I'm referring to my dad. But it would be physically impossible for us to actually have a wedding in the US with all of the people that all of our family would want to invite. Like, it would truly be $500,000 if we had the desire to do that and everybody was invited, etc. So not only is it very on brand for Matt and I, like, we see ourselves as travelers. It's a big part of our relationship.
Absolutely.
We both love Europe. We want to do something like big with friends, like, of course, have a family involved, but we want mostly friends at our wedding. And then also, like, it kind of narrows the list down a little bit because unfortunately, not everyone's going to be able to travel for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've had our plans for a very long time. Outside of a general idea, though, we don't have a hard decision on a country that we want to do it in. We have a general timeline. I'm very much in the mindset of, I'm not trying to rush anything. Like, we have our entire lives to be married. I don't want to be stressed. I also work in an event industry, so I know how stressful it can be if you set an unrealistic timeline. It's just not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
So trying to have fun, excited to be the reason that a lot of people in our families travel to a new place because neither of our families are well traveled. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm just like super excited for a destination wedding.
I really thought you were going to get engaged and then be like, let's go. And you have been so chill, so relaxed, true to your word. Like, I'm not in a rush to get married. You just wanted to be engaged.
Yeah.
And I like the energy that you're bringing there. I personally think that's the way to do it. There's no need to rush anything. And then that way you're not going to be stressed.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of people that rush it is because they're rushing like the next steps that are involved too. Like, they're really excited to buy that house. They're really excited to have a kid. And I mean, there's a lot of people in my life that have gotten like engaged and then have a wedding date within a year from then or less than a year. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds like a lot. It's something I'm not interested in. So our ideal timeline is 2026. The actual date is going to depend on the venue and the availability. But one learning I've already had is how quickly things book up. Like,
no, they're already getting booked for 2026.
No, it's crazy. Well, I have one vendor booked for the wedding, which I'll get to at a later point in this conversation. But literally, they're like, yeah, so we're booked for 2026, but like, we'll figure out a way to make it work. And it's like, sir, it's 2024. That's crazy.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we know your background a little bit, the biggest question, where to start in this very daunting journey of wedding planning?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think in every episode ever, Ashley and I always preach, there's not a right time or place or like, there's not a particular way you need to start. You just need to start. And unfortunately, with wedding planning, there's only one place that you need to start from, and that's determining budget. Budget is going to determine the size of the wedding, where you can have it. I also think it's a really sticky conversation to have, like if you have family members that want to contribute to it, and also how much you're willing to spend, like in general on a wedding. Like Matt and I have had a lot of conversations of like, this is crazy, the money that we're talking about putting on the table.
Yeah.
But it's also something that we're excited to do. However, there is a threshold where it's like, if we spend any more than this, that is sickening. Like, it's completely unreasonable and not something we want to do for our future. So definitely a conversation to have with your partner, obviously, and then whoever wants to contribute to the wedding. In our case scenario, like Matt and I are going to be paying for a majority of the wedding, but I think both sides of the family want to support in whatever way possible. So just having those conversations early on so you know where to go from there. Also, the location has a huge factor into price, obviously, but like the day that you have it on, like we've both recently attended weddings on like a Wednesday or a Thursday simply because the cost of the venue was $20,000 cheaper, which is so disgusting, because the venues that we're talking about that we've attended weddings at in the United States, in Massachusetts, in New Hampshire, like you only get the venue for a set amount of hours on one day. So a perk of doing a destination wedding is, one, things are a lot cheaper over there. You could get more bang for your buck. And number two, there's a lot of venues that offer like multi-day experiences. So yes, maybe you're paying what you would pay in the US, but you get a 4-day experience for like the same exact price, or maybe even lower. But no, it's crazy. So set the budget. And then I would say step number 2 is setting the vibes. Like really understanding the aesthetic that you want in your wedding. Like, where do you want it to be? On a vineyard? Do you want it to be on the coast, by the ocean, et cetera, et cetera? And I've kind of done a few different things to help me understand my vibe. Mm-hmm. Pinterest was the first thing that I went to. And hot take, get off of Pinterest if you're planning a wedding. Because everything that you see is so unrealistic. It's sickening. It is sickening. Like, what comes up is the Lake Como, like hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s to have a wedding at a museum that you're not even allowed to stay at.
Yeah.
It's these floral arrangements in a walkway that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And unfortunately, I learned that really quickly. Like, you cannot compare yourself to what you see online.
I think that's so good, though, that you recognize that right away. Because I bet there's a lot of girls that are so disappointed planning their wedding and then comparing it to their Pinterest board.
Yeah.
But, like, just learning the hard truth of that's not realistic.
Yeah. And I definitely think you can get scrappy and you can do things on a budget, but there are certain elements that you just won't be able to replicate that you see. Also, Matt brought up a good point, because his favorite quote to always drill into my head is, comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. And what do we have to compare ourselves to? All the influencers and celebrities getting married.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure Sophia Richie spent like $500,000 on her florals alone.
I believe it.
And it's because they have the money to do so. And like in the influencer industry, I'm sure they're getting gifted so much. I'm sure venues are offering to like do things for free or at discounted rates because they're promoting the venue, etc. So I started on Pinterest. I was humbled when I started looking into the prices of things. And now what I've done is I saw this TikTok where you create a bunch of Pinterest boards that are actually not specific to wedding, but are specific to you as a human. So there's one that is titled art, another one titled travel, another one titled life. It's just a bunch of different categories. And the purpose is you save things that resonate with you amongst these like 6 different categories. And it's not supposed to be anything wedding related, because it's very easy to see something that somebody does at a wedding and be like, oh my God, that's so cute, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But is that authentic to you and your partner, or is that just something like cute and Instagrammable that you saw on Instagram? Mm-hmm. So I did that. I think like the 7 categories was obnoxious. Like we could have just done like one, like 1 or 2. It was just like, okay, there was a category of texture and there was a category of pattern. And I'm like, what the fuck is the difference?
Yeah.
Like, truly, like, what's the difference? So do what works for you.
Yeah.
But I think that was a really interesting exercise to see, like, what you gravitate towards in terms of color, in terms of, like, aesthetic of a venue, etc. And then from there, you can create a wedding vibe and aesthetic and Pinterest board specific to that. Mm-hmm. But it just makes sure that you're not just saving a bunch of random wedding things. It's actually reflective of you and your partner.
I love that. How involved would you say Matt is? Because I think this is also a big topic of, it tends to be the girl and the boy's like, do you ever see those videos of the fiance, getting their head dunked of what day is our wedding? And they don't even have the freaking day right.
100%. Hysterical. I'm going to force Matt against his will to be a part of pretty much every decision-making process.
And I think he'll be happy to do so.
Yeah.
If you want him there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a great vision for the most part. Like he also has very strong opinions. So I also think he should be a part of the planning process to make it feel really like a combo of the two of us.
Yeah.
So we're going to have weekly meetings.
Love it.
Once we kind of get closer to the event. And yeah, I wouldn't say it'll be an equal 50-50 split, but if it's 60 me, 40 him, like
That's really good.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Wow, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll see if he enjoys that, but. And then one other thing that I thought was so interesting, it was from a colleague that's also getting married. And if you don't know, like I work in experiential and event marketing. And so the senses are like really important to like experiences that we create. It's like, what is it going to look like? What is it going to smell like? What is like, if you want a whole experience, which is what I want in a wedding, I don't want it to look and feel like any other wedding. I want it to be reflective of Matt and I want it to feel like an experience, not just a wedding. It's important to take the 5 senses into consideration. And my colleague literally created like a mood board. Like, what is it going to smell like? What is the mood of it? I'm honestly forgetting all my 5 senses as we speak right now. It's taste, smell, sight, touch.
Wait, you
here. But honestly, using those as like guiding pillars to also create your aesthetic and help you direct you towards a certain venue, I think is just an interesting take.
It's a lot.
It's like really.
Don't bring the senses into it.
It's so extra. No, but it's so true.
No, it is. If you want to have an experience, like you're saying, like it does make sense to think about all of these things.
Yeah. So that's just like a fun little exercise that I also would have never thought of myself. But I'm like, okay, so true.
All right, so we've established our budget.
Mm-hmm.
We've established our vibe. What's the third step?
Venue and date immediately.
I really feel as though you cannot move forward until you have a venue and a date.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to get a wedding planner for this? How are you supposed to get the flowers ordered if you don't even know what country you're going to be in?
Yeah. Also, just the essence of time is so precious. Like, I've been getting a lot of advice, like, lock your venue in, your date in, and then literally don't touch wedding planning for 6 months. It's like that is just the most important element because things book up so quickly.
Totally.
And I started, or I guess for the past 4 months, I've been very softly researching venues. So the basic Google search, TikTok search, Pinterest search, asking for quotes, kind of looking at the brochures that places have online, trying to get a good feel for price in specific areas within different countries that I'm looking at. And boy, has this experience been humbling. Humbling. I thought I found my dream wedding venue. If anyone doesn't know this, Matt is Brazilian. Half of his family is fluent in Portuguese. We weren't originally considering Portugal. It was more so Italy and France. And then we started to see these gorgeous venues in Portugal. And we're like, you know what? That would be cool. That would be different for us.
I haven't seen any Portugal weddings. And Portugal's also known to be cheaper. And it's the closest country to the U.S.
Yeah. Exactly.
So easier flight, all of the things.
Exactly. So we found this wedding venue, and it was actually one of the first that I sent a quote to, but I wasn't, when I got it back, it was like amongst others, and I wasn't like, oh yeah, this one's amazing. Like I didn't think I was going to end up going with one of the first venues that I sent out an inquiry to, so I kind of dismissed it. And then I started kind of looking into it further, and Ashley and I hang out on a Saturday, and I'm like, Ashley, I think I found the wedding venue. So we pull it up. We're looking at the prices of things. We're like, holy crap, like this is so affordable. It's basically a 5-star resort, which should have been the first red flag, to be honest. We could rent out the entire venue for 3 days. There's activities on site for guests to kind of go and venture off on their own.
To put it into perspective, there is a tile painting class, a tour of the garden in the back that's used in the food that they make. You can have a garden reception, a poolside cocktail, in the vineyard for another thing. There's so many different event spaces. Also, I'd like to preface, when you brought it up, you weren't even gung-ho yet. You were like, oh, like, wait, look at this venue that I found. And then as Court and I are because we just egg each other on.
Yeah.
we're scrolling, we're like, wait, oh my God, it has this. And Court's like, you think? Like, I don't know. Like, is it European enough? Like, I don't know if it's totally my vibe. As we're going through, we're like, no, this is perfect. We're looking at the prices. We're like, wait, okay, even if we're generous with the price, this is still under budget.
Yeah.
I think we found your venue.
Yeah.
There's a river. We were planning the, like, photo shoot on the boat, in the river, like, all of the things.
When I say that we were fantasizing and planning for 3 hours, like, that is an understatement.
I was so confident that that was your venue. I was like, we found it. Wait, tell the road. The road.
Oh my God, guys.
No, and this is the most us story you've ever heard.
So a big factor and something I'm looking for in a venue is the proximity to like an airport. So in my research, I always map that out. This venue was perfect proximity, and the only road, the only main highway that was literally what we had to take to get to this venue, 222.
Guys, like, come on. You can't tell me this isn't Court's venue. We're like, this is written in the freaking stars. The angels hand-delivered this wedding venue to you.
So true. I go home. I show everything to Matt. I'm like, look, we found the wedding venue. Sit your ass down right now. My computer's out.
I'm like showing Joe. I'm like, we found Courtney's venue. Look how gorgeous this is. Like, I'm so excited.
Literally first page, Matt goes, Courtney, you know that in Portugal they use commas instead of periods in their dollars, correct? And I'm like, what? Say what? Per se what? He's like, Courtney, that does not say $315 per hotel room. That says 315,000 euros for the privatization of the hotel. I'm like, denial. Immediately, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way they would do that. That's so silly. Why would they swap the commas and the periods? We're both on our own little research about like what this means. He was right. Bawling. I start bawling. I call Ashley. I tell her. Bawling.
I'm just like, my stomach sank. I was like, what? But like the road was 222. What do you mean? What do you mean? Call him back.
Yeah, and to be fair, let me explain exactly what the quote said. It was 315 period 00. There wasn't a third zero.
Like, that's not adding up.
And also with the language, like the translation from Portuguese to English in the quote, like it was not proper English. So it was easy to read that it was what Ashley and I originally thought that it was. So it was just an overall disappointment. And now I feel like I am negative 10,000 steps behind in finding a venue. But it was just epitome of what the venue hunt is actually like. It's like, this is it. This is it. So what I have decided to do from this point on is, why the hell am I trying to do this venue research myself? What is coming up in all of the basic searches is what is Instagrammable, like what is very mainstream, and because of that, prices are so inflated. And to be honest, I don't want a wedding that looks like every other bitch. Like, no. I really want something that's my own. And so what I'm going to do moving forward is exert all of my energy into finding a wedding planner that has relationships to venues, vendors, etc. Could help me in the negotiation, can help me with the general direction of the venue search. And then something that would be awesome is if come springtime, Matt and I have the ability to go out and actually see venues in person. Hopefully we have it narrowed down to like 2 or 3 places, hopefully within the same area. And we can just kind of bang it out and actually make a final decision then.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that you could get a wedding planner before the venue. Because what I've always heard is the wedding planner like works with the venue.
Mm-hmm.
So usually like a venue has a wedding planner.
Yes.
So I think that's a really cool concept. And if there's not a lot of them, I feel like that's a great industry to get into.
Yeah.
As a girly who loves weddings, if you wanted to be a wedding planner, how cool if you get to fly around the world and attend all of these beautiful weddings. Like, that would kind of be a sick job. So
yeah,
I think that's a great place to start. And yeah, wow.
Yeah, roller coaster of emotions for sure.
And at that point, when Courtney broke the news to me, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, everything that Courtney's experiencing, I'm just, like, thinking about myself in the situation. And I'm like, I can't handle that.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be first of many disappointments and trials and tribulations.
But this is kind of like the biggest hill to get over. Mountain, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, I think, will really all fall into place.
Yeah.
Like, picking what color napkins you want. Sure, it's like a decision, but you have the venue. You have the biggest part. Nobody's going to remember the color of the napkin.
Totally. And honestly, I was talking with a coworker of mine yesterday who had a stunning destination wedding in Mexico a couple years ago. And so she was, like, giving me a lot of pointers. And she was like, it's not even worth going with a venue that has kind of like a wedding team. I think that's an allure for a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, you get the venue on your own. It comes with a team of planners that are familiar with the space and the vendors. And she was like, if you go that route, sure, it might be simple, but it's going to be very limited. I'm sure the venue has very specific contracts with certain vendors that they can use. Mm-hmm. It's kind of going to feel very like cookie cutter, like turnkey. Whereas if you go with a wedding planner, there's probably a lot more flexibility with what you can do. And also, kind of hot take, we have a mutual friend that just did a wedding in Sicily, and she got a wedding planner in Sicily to do everything. And she was like, literally biggest mistake. The time difference is horrendous.
Yeah.
The work ethic is so different. She said it would take like 3 weeks to hear back from a wedding planner.
That would turn me into a bridezilla.
Exactly. And so I think it's really important to use a US planner that specializes in destination weddings so that you can have a buffer between like you and the actual wedding venue and vendors, because I think that would really stress me out. Whereas this person is like, I know it takes 3 weeks to respond. I'm going to level set expectations with the client and bride to make sure that everyone has a good experience. So that will be my plan. And then immediately, as to level set, I don't have a wedding planner. I'm at the point where I'm starting to research them. And my first question when I was thinking about this, I was like, how in the world do you find a wedding planner? How?
I feel like a Google search.
A Google search. Word of mouth is really important in this industry. And I think the bridal community is very open. So if I see that someone on Instagram tagged a certain wedding planner, I bet you I can reach out to that person and be like, wait, so what was your experience? Like, are you open to sharing or recommending this person or company for me to use? So I think if you don't know anybody or you don't reach out to anyone, something that I've started to do, which I think is going to be how I find my planner, is I've found these like wedding publications, and for lack of a better term, like online magazines. So there's real stories of weddings with photos, and at the bottom they have all these links out to the photographer and videographer that they use, the venue, the wedding planner, truly all of the vendors. So I think that's going to be where I do most of my research and ultimately find the planner that I want to use, because I'm actually seeing what they've produced themselves. So that's likely where I'm going to start. And then if anyone's curious, my favorite publication that I found, which was also recommended by a friend, it's called The Anti-Bride. So it's like non-traditional weddings and like really, really fun vibes. It like tells you the country. It gives a story about the couple and like what this experience and means to them. It's honestly addicting. So that's where I'll start, and hopefully we lock that in very soon. I gave myself a timeline of like by the end of January, I need to have a planner locked in, because if we want to travel come May, like that's kind of a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And get a wedding date like a year and a half or a year out from that point, like, yeah, the clock is starting to tick.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah.
All right, so like we mentioned earlier, Court pulled the both-ers to see what their favorite part of a wedding is, and we got so many write-ins. Court also reached out to other brides in her life, so we're going to go through all of the favorite parts of a wedding that we've received from others and then share our hot takes. First one, handwritten notes at everyone's seats. I've seen this online.
Crazy.
And I was bawling.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cute.
Yeah.
And if you're doing an intimate wedding, this is just, as a guest, I can only imagine like how that makes you feel. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's so memorable. Like, they're going to remember that.
Yeah.
When they think of weddings, that is going to be a core memory.
100%. I want to do this. I think I've heard people be like, oh my God, that's so much time and energy. And they maybe thought of the idea of like too close to the wedding. Because it takes a while. Like, you can't, it's not just like a thank you note. It's like what that person means in your life, like how they, I think it's really important. And my love language is like handwritten notes.
You literally mentioned that in, I think, the last episode.
Yeah. So that would be so on brand.
Yeah.
So definitely something I want to do as well.
I hope that you do that.
Next is sentimental details. So this was something that I honestly wrote in, or I added to the list because I've loved it in attending weddings. But like, I went to a wedding a couple of summers ago, and the couple met because the groom was the bride's bartender, and she wrote on the receipt and like left her phone number. So they had that printed out on the napkins at the cocktail bar. And like, just things that are so special to
cute.
The couple, I think, is literally what makes it your wedding and not just something that you see online. Another thing that I saw, Sammy Clark, one of my favorite fitness influencers, got married, and JT, her husband, surprised her with the inner lining of the tuxedo coat was all handwritten notes that she had written for him. Like, I would... Endgame. I would be over. Yeah. I'd be in a pool, a puddle of tears.
That's just so thoughtful. I could melt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd want to do something, which is like not as sentimental, but I want to do something funny with Matt's first Instagram DM to me. Like, I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I think that would be like just a funny, cute thing to have somewhere. But any sentimental detail that's really specific to the couple, I think, is what sets your wedding apart from any other person's wedding. So definitely want to figure out what those would be for me.
All right. A private first look.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I go back and forth. I don't know if I fully formed my opinion. I've heard people love a first look. I like the idea because if you want to get pictures before, I hate when the ceremony's done and then while everyone's enjoying cocktail hour, the bridal party has to like take photos.
Couldn't agree more.
It's like, wait, I want to have fun. The serious part's over. Like, let's go party.
Yeah.
And if you don't do a first look, you can't really do the photos.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of before you're bawling at the ceremony, like when your makeup's fresh, like getting some nice photos. I think those are really the photos that you end up getting framed and send out in the thank you cards.
Exactly.
I think it's nice, but I also love the idea of walking down the aisle for the first time and having the groom see you for the first time.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're going to cry anyways.
Yeah. I was listening to, I think Sammy was saying this, like, even if you have a first look, the feeling of walking down an aisle and seeing your partner at the end of the aisle is still the most amazing, different feeling than the first look. Like, I think in this situation, you can do both and still reap the emotional benefits of both of them. And I'm totally aligned with you. Like, I want to get as many pictures out of the way with as possible beforehand. I think it's really awesome to have, like, that one-on-one time, because I think in a wedding, you get pulled in all different directions, like, from your partner. And so I think that's just more solo time that you can have with them to kind of relish in the moment.
I agree.
And then I also like the idea of, like, I like public vows, but I like the idea of private, like, elongated vows, so that people aren't listening to like 20 minutes of you two standing up there professing your love for one another. And so I think within the private first look, I would also include a private vow, something maybe a little different than what I'd actually say at the altar.
That's nice. Personally, that makes me sad as a guest. I want to hear
Experience it.
the personalized vows. I've been to a couple weddings where like they don't do the vows, and I'm like, why am I here? Hello.
Yes.
Make it sentimental. Make me cry. You rehearsing like something out of the Bible or something doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
Even if it is personalized to the couple, like I want to hear it from your mouth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think it's so beautiful. Like we're here to celebrate your love. Like, show me your love.
Yeah. No, to be fair, I will be doing both, but there might be like a longer version or a different version that I share with him one-on-one.
I love the idea of having it be, private. But as I've only ever been a guest and I haven't really thought about, Joe and I, and like selfishly, I want to hear like that's my favorite part.
I literally could not imagine Joe giving a public vow to you.
I know, but he'll do it.
Yeah, he will.
Unless we elope.
Okay, next on the list. When I first read this, I was like, not for me, but I understand why this makes sense. Glow sticks on the dance floor. That sounds like a bar mitzvah in my opinion. However, the reason why it was a great element from this bride was because a lot of like the people that aren't like huge dancers and might feel uncomfortable on the dance floor had a reason to be on the dance floor and had something to do with their hands. So this was more so like to make other people like have fun, especially if you're having a wedding with like elders, like grandparents, maybe somebody in a wheelchair. This is not going to be particular to my wedding, but like I understand as to why that could like heighten the vibes of things.
I just sent you this video. As like the party favors, someone did a customized silk scarf that's like so Europe.
Iconic.
And I feel like that does
is the
same vibe with people,
waving,
doing this with the scarf, like wearing it on their heads, around their neck. Like it's something they can take home. Girls can put it on their purse. Like people can wear it to the beach. I think that is so sick.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
Love that so much more than glow sticks. But like I like that concept.
Yes.
And then also like same but different vibes, which I also really like, which I don't, this is like going to be something that's trendy, that's not going to be done in like years from now, but like the really cute like umbrellas for the shade or the fans, like the handheld fans to wave off during the ceremony if you're like in a hot location. I just think it looks chic as hell.
It does.
And then it's also it's this minor detail that maybe people would be like, oh my god, like I don't really need that, but it looks really good in pictures and it's useful. Like there's a function to it.
Yeah. All right, next one is quite obvious, but an open bar. I think if you're having a wedding and you don't have an open bar, don't have a wedding.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to be there.
Like I know for a fact that's what my dad is going to contribute. One of the things he'll contribute is like with that family of drinkers, there's no way. Like people are not going to have fun if not.
Yeah. And like if you want people on the dance floor to have a good time, like your guests, especially if you're doing destination, right?
Yeah.
They're spending so much money to get over there. I know an open bar is expensive, but I genuinely feel like that is one of the most important pieces.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I've been to a couple open bar weddings. I feel like the venue skimps out.
Yeah.
I probably had 12 freaking drinks. I was not even buzzed. I was pissed.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you have a real open bar.
I know. And they also have bars that like don't allow shots and stuff like that. So
a lot of the time, open bars, you can't do shots.
Yeah. Well, so something to look into.
100%.
While you're doing venue research.
Yes.
Okay, next is organized transportation if you have a lot of...
I think it's a non-negotiable.
No, like it's truly so necessary. I've been to weddings where I've been literally stranded because it's been in BFE somewhere and there hasn't been organized transportation. And a tip that I also got was like, honestly, don't go with a venue where you need to go to 17 different places because transportation is a logistics nightmare.
Yeah, it is. And the buses to and from the hotel, sure, it's an extra expense, but your guests like appreciate that so much. And then everybody at the same time calling an Uber, that's so expensive. Everybody's, again, already paid to, like, spend the night at wherever your location is. They're getting you a gift. Like, please get them home safe, especially if you have an open bar. And then to not offer that, I feel like is honestly dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. Next is live illustrator. I feel like this is
I don't know what this is.
Basically someone like painting the wedding venue that you're at, like, and it be kind of like a show, and it's also like a memento that the bride and groom get to keep.
Okay.
This is something I think of the time right now. Like, people have like watercolor painting of the venue or whatever. I don't know if I would particularly spend the money on this, but I like the element of like dinner and a show, like ceremony and a show. I think it adds like to the experience of it. So I get as to why a bride would like it, because you also get to take like a beautiful like thing home. But that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, it doesn't really do it for me. Last slow song had a projector with a combination of happy moments of the couple. I think this is cute. Would I want you to do this? No, it feels a little tacky. But that's just my personal opinion. I like the idea of it being personalized.
Yeah.
I went to a wedding this summer, and at the rehearsal dinner, the bride put on like a surprise slideshow of her and the groom, and she like made a video montage. I was bawling. Like, it was so sweet. And even if it is a little chuggy, a little bit cringy in a way, because you love the couple so much, it's like, wait, this is such a pure love. Yeah. My heart is exploding. Yeah. So I do like the idea of making it sentimental. There's a fine line.
Okay, this is another kind of sign of the time, but an After the Tone audio guest book. I think guest books are so our parents' generation, like, it kind of gives me funeral energy. Like, you kind of walk in, you sign the book to prove that you were there, or you sign like this foam core poster board with like a picture of the couple in the middle.
But what are you gonna do with that after?
Exactly. So this is just a 2024 iteration of that, where you pick up the phone, you leave a message. I think it could be cute if done properly. But I'm not quite sure what I want to do with what my version of this is going to be, but I understand how it's like immersive. It's another experience. I think it would be hysterical to listen back to, especially if people are kind of leaving these messages throughout the night as people get more drunk, etc.
Yeah. The only sentimental piece is like if your dad left a message.
Oh my God, stop.
Having like the voice message. I love that. Or loved ones. Honestly, more for family. I think that's so cute. One thing I do like in place of a guest book is people taking Polaroids. Courtney, I'm not even going to like give you the time right now. No, I can't. I feel like if you guys were to look at Courtney and I, who do you think people would guess is the crier? I feel like they would guess it's me. But it's actually you.
No. But I don't cry in my day-to-day life. I feel like no, I literally don't.
You've called me FaceTime crying like a decent amount.
I've had a hard year, okay?
I know, I'm just saying. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but to say, also, wait, last episode you were crying and you're like, I think this is the first time I've gotten teary-eyed on the podcast. I go, lies. But like, I'm not going to say that.
No, literally all you saying is dad at the wedding, and that's
Tears.
what sparked this. Anyway, I'm going to be a wreck on my wedding day. I think it's because
You're going to need a makeup artist to like follow you around.
Oh my God, it's crazy. It's so true. Anyway, yeah, there was no reason for these tears right here.
Do you need a minute?
No. Yeah, maybe let me get a Kleenex. Yeah.
One thing I was going to say is I like the idea of the Polaroid pictures. Yeah. That's been one of my favorite parts because the guests get to like bring one home. You like you remember the wedding, and then you also take a picture and like put it in their little book. And I feel like that'll be cool to actually look back on one day. Like, oh, what did my friends look like? Like when you have kids, be like, oh, that's Auntie Court. Like, look at what she looked like back then. I feel like that's super cute.
Signature drinks to match the vibe, and the couple, love, we'll definitely be having. That's just
his and hers. Yeah, I feel like that's been at every single wedding I've been to. Love.
Me too.
Photo booths at reception. I think this is so. What's the word? Honestly, tacky, but I love it. Yeah. I love a photo booth. Yeah. I think this is the one like chuggy tacky thing
that's timeless.
Timeless. ridiculous. Like, it's so much fun with, like, the silly little hats and the boas, and, like, you're in there taking goofy photos. Like, I don't know. I love it.
Me too. Me too. Next, alone time as husband and wife after the ceremony to soak everything in, I think is so important. Like we already mentioned in the episode that a lot of times you're running off to take pictures, and I think it's like you need to take a second to be like, oh my God, like we're married, like we're husband and wife, like, oh my God, this is the best day ever. I think that's something that I definitely want to instill, this and more of those like one-off moments where you can just really take everything in and you're not just being pulled in different directions. So you could actually enjoy and remember the experience.
Agreed. Casual welcome dinner with all guests instead of a seated rehearsal dinner.
I want to do both. I've been to weddings where there's a rehearsal dinner and then it opens up to welcome everyone for cocktails afterwards. So there's still an opportunity for everyone to mix and mingle before the actual wedding day.
I like the idea of having a really private rehearsal dinner with just your wedding party and like your parents. I think it's a way to make a huge wedding or like a bigger party really intimate and memorable with like truly your closest people there. I love that. So I feel like rehearsal dinners get skipped over, but I think there's a really great way to make it so intimate and really chic. Like I really like that idea. And like you're gonna like see everybody at the wedding. I like the idea of a welcome drinks like at the hotel or wherever people are staying. Like the bride and groom are down there, and as people are checking in, like it's a very casual come in, come out, say hi, but like go do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of a really regimented schedule for the guests. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And the last one for this section is spending money on things you care about.
Yeah, my cousin shared this piece with me because we're from Rhode Island originally, and she had like Dell's frozen lemonade as an option during the ceremony, and like people could spike it if they want. She had a
I love that.
Yeah, she had a Ben and Jerry's bar afterwards, and those are elements that like you don't need by any means, but they were really important. Their favorite things as a couple. Like they used to get Ben and Jerry's every Friday night. Like Dell's lemonade is quintessential Rhode Island, and it made the experience for the guests like even more fun and amazing. And so although some people would be like, okay, you didn't need that, why did you need to spend money on that? Like sometimes those details make the attendee experience so much greater. So
yeah, I love that.
I loved that too.
Okay, now we're getting into the tea. Our next section, things to forego. What did people do that they were like, honestly, not worth it?
These are some hot takes, which I love.
I like this. I feel like this is so raw and real.
Yeah.
It's not real to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a wedding and say, yes, you have to do this.
Yeah.
Every bride is like, oh my God, such a waste of money. Like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And I love that. I think that's being real and honest.
I agree. I want to start with the first one because I actually laughed out loud when I read this. In air quotes right now. IDK, maybe shoes, ? I've never seen a bride's shoes before. Do they even wear them? ? End quotation mark. I laughed aloud. I was like, this is so true. The only time you see the bride's shoes is in the photos afterwards where the photographer stages the shoes that say Jimmy Choo or Louis Vuitton or whatever, and it's like paired with the ring in the little ring box.
That's the only time.
Outside of that moment, people take their shoes off immediately to start dancing. Like, why in the world are you spending thousands of dollars on something that no one's going to know about except for yourself? Think about how long the dress is that you're wearing.
Yeah.
The shoes aren't even visible.
No.
So I laughed aloud. I will not be splurging on a pair of shoes just to take a photo of it and to never wear the shoes again because they were my wedding shoes.
100%. The only thing I could see splurging the shoes on is like the rehearsal dinner, like anything where you're in a short dress. I don't know. I can't lie. I've even saved some wedding shoes where I'm like, these are so fucking cute. I need them.
Yeah. I don't know. Not for me. But on that same note, like, honestly, anything super expensive that I will not get use of again. In this moment, I can't really think of another detail, but I think that's a question I'm going to ask myself before I whip out my credit card for things. It's like, what is this going to be used for? What is the longevity of this product in my life? And that'll help me determine how much money I'm willing to spend on it.
Yeah. Next one is party favors. So I understand, like, what are basic wedding party favors that come to mind?
I think people do this in different ways. Like, I've seen the couple, like, give, like, little boxes of products that are specific to the place. So maybe, like, a little thing of olive oil. Maybe it's like...
we got olive oil from one of the weddings this summer. Honestly, I loved it. It was, like, so good.
I've had... My aunt has, like, this garden in her backyard, and she made, like, blueberry jam. And
that's so cute.
And, like, mason jarred it and, like, put a little,
if you're
like,
not gifting
stamp on
sourdough,
it.
I'm not coming.
I do agree, though. It could be a waste of money depending on what it is. Like,
yeah,
if it's something
you're gonna
thoughtful...
do, like, a cheap little something or other, but if you're going to spend money on, like, a nice olive oil, like, I would love a nice olive oil. I would love a homemade blueberry jam.
Yeah.
I think that's thoughtful. I'm a big fan of rewarding your guests. Weddings are so expensive. Sure, they're going to show up in your life because they love you and they want to support you, but let's not forget they're also going to 5 other weddings that year, and at one point it's like another wedding. Yes, it's the most important day of your life, but, like, to make your wedding stand out, like, give the guest a little something.
Yeah, totally.
Personally,
I think if there's a thoughtful component of it, then sure, maybe, but if it's like a little tchotchke that you put, like, the Almeidas on, no. Yeah,
I agree. Now, again, back to the scarf idea.
Yeah,
I'm really in on this scarf idea.
I'm in on the scarf idea, but I don't even know if that would constitute... I mean, I guess it is a favor, but it's also, like, an element of the wedding that they get to just, like, take home, you know?
It's a favor.
Yeah. Okay, next is a seating chart.
You cannot forego a seating chart.
I highly disagree with this as well. Like, the chaos that would bring, people trying to find the seat, that would become your problem when fucking Auntie Linda comes up to you and is like, I wanted to sit next to Auntie Karen, but I can't because your friend Joe just sat in the seat. Like, not my fucking problem, lady.
No.
But that will become your problem if you don't have a seating chart.
Yeah, you need a seating chart. Yeah. Now, I know this is probably one of the most stressful and tedious planning pieces.
Yeah.
But for a good reason. Like, this is kind of... You spend a decent amount of time at the dinner.
Yeah.
You need to make sure the vibe is there. If you're trying to curate a good experience... Who you're sitting next to is a major part of that.
Totally.
Wait, how do you feel about the bride and groom sitting at their own table?
I hate it so much.
So where would you have them seating?
I want a super long table or like one of those like U-shaped tables, but everyone's kind of like in the same area, and then we would go in the middle of that.
But if you're going to have like 100 people, can you do that?
100%.
Okay.
Or even maybe we have like 2 or 3 long tables, like kind of all next to each other. I just don't want to be at a sweetheart table. I think that ruins the fun.
Yeah. Minor decor details. Now, this isn't really giving what it needs to give. I don't know what minor decor details
I think they're referring to the colors of the napkins, like the...
Well, you're going to have napkins, so, like, you have to spend money on that.
No. I think they were referring to the stress. Like, don't get so worked up over, like, little details, because at the end of the day, no one's going to actually fucking care or notice about what color cutlery they have to eat with.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably in your mind as you're planning, like, the biggest, like, oh my God, I have to figure out what song is going to be played during the reception or the seated dinner. What color is this going to be? And, like, at the end of the day, people don't actually notice those things.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, and then probably the most controversial of them all is something to forego is a bridal party. Specifically, we've had a few different comments about this. If it's too big, it adds so many extra expenses and logistics. This particular person, I think, had a wedding party or a bachelorette bridal party of 12 girls, all the photos, allowing them all to have dates, like orchestrating hair and makeup for all of them, figuring out transportation, like from the church to the reception area. She said it was just like a really big headache, and if she were to do it again, she would keep it on the smaller side and then like invite friends to be part of the special moments, like getting ready, etc. But at the end of the day, like, guests have more fun not in a bridal party, and so she just thought it was a headache.
Yeah. So my take on bridal parties is I will not be having a bridal party. I will just have Courtney and Morgan help me plan things. Like, Morgan will be my maid of honor, but like you'll essentially be my only bridesmaids, but like I'm not going to put you guys in matching dresses at all.
Yeah.
If anything, like I just want to honor the people who know me best and know my relationship best. And like when it comes to bachelorette and planning like, you know, sweet things for me, I don't need a whole team doing that. Realistically, it's only the maid of honor anyways.
Yeah.
So like having the two people that know me best like help to plan special moments for me would mean the world to me. And that way when I do, like, you know, your little kid, like, will you be my whatever, even though it's so cheesy, like, I can go all out for, like, those two people in my life. When I do a bachelorette, if I do a bachelorette, I will just invite all of my friends.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure.
Yeah.
Because being in a bridal party is also very expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put that burden on my friends. I'm literally going to throw out a date and be like, hey, guys, we're going to Miami. If you want to come for my bachelorette, you're in. If not, no pressure.
Yeah.
I know life is expensive. I'll see you at the wedding. If not, if you want to come on a little mini vacation, join me. If not, no big deal.
Yeah. I like that approach a lot. I think it's less stressful for the bride. It's less stressful for all of the attendees. I do feel like people, at least in my life, might get butthurt if they're not included in certain things. And at the end of the day, like, I do have such a good group of girls in my life that, like, it would probably be really fun if we did the things, but I'm all, like, went full out. But I'm also just so terrified of, like, just so many things that could go wrong as well.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know my approach just yet. I do like the idea of having something on the smaller side for the official like bridal party, but then similarly like having it be a free-for-all for all the fun stuff leading up to it and afterwards. Like one thing we want to do as a couple, Matt and I, which might replace the actual like bachelor and bachelorette party, is have like a friend moon after our wedding. Like if we're all going to be in Europe anyways, why don't we just go to another city or like stay longer in the place that we have the wedding in and have a whole friend experience.
Have a bachelorette though. Like there's just so many elements that I am envisioning that need to come to life, and it's not there. It's not going to be able to be executed. Or I guess it could still with the friend moon, but it's just different energy.
Okay, fine. I'll have a proper bachelorette party. Fine. Twist my arm.
Yeah.
But
one other take on this, I don't want anyone standing up with me.
I was just going to say that. I'm not going to have anyone either. Okay, so last and final section is Court's non-negotiables for my future wedding.
I'm excited to hear these because I only skimmed this section, and particularly the last one had me like, what is going on? So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this.
Honestly, I just really want to share it because I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, and like, will these actually be my non-negotiables a year and a half from now, in the episode right before my wedding or right after my wedding? And maybe as I read this list, people on the other side of things that actually have had a wedding might like laugh in my face being like, holy shit, girl, you're talking about $1 million wedding, you know?
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. So first on the list is obviously need a wedding planner. Like your type B girl would not be able to have a wedding without it. Next is a multi-day wedding experience. I feel so strongly about this, especially since it is a destination wedding.
Yeah.
Like if everyone's traveling out there and going all this way and taking time out of work, we're going to make it an experience. I actually heard from my good friend at work about her wedding that she hosted in Mexico. Listen to what her day was like, her week. She had a week-long wedding in Mexico.
Oh my God.
There was only 48 people, so this is how she was able to do it. First day, everyone had a like cocktail welcome situation. Next day, friend day. So all of the friends had transportation to a day beach club, and they all just got like blackout on the beach the entire day.
I'd like that.
Next day was like rest by the pool day, including family. So it was
like
more
that as
family focused, but friends were allowed to join if they wanted to. That evening was they rented out like a private rooftop for their rehearsal dinner where everyone was invited, everyone from the wedding. So she had the friend moment, a family moment, then a moment for everyone to get together. And she said it was awesome because everyone was like family by the time the actual wedding day happened. Following day, which is the 4th day, wedding day. So fun, etc. Final day, which is day 5, was an adventure day. So they had like it wasn't like white water rafting, but it was like something like that, like for everyone to do together. And I was like, yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I think I would like that.
Yeah, me too. So some iteration of that. One thing about me is I do not care for florals at all. I think it's a huge waste of money. In my dream world, this ceremony will be in a very picturesque, scenic landscape where I don't need to go all out or spend money on what the archway will look like and what the florals. I do like when florals kind of line the end caps of the rows of seats. I think that's really pretty.
But you could also do like candles or other things.
Yes.
Because I've heard, I think it's known, flowers are the
most expensive. Yeah. Like when I think an average price for people to spend on flowers is between like $8,000 and $12,000, and that just makes you want to throw up. And that
like
even that is
flowers
crazy.
In a frugal way, like don't do flowers.
It looks frugal, like it looks bare minimum.
When I've seen flowers, I mean, 2 weddings I've seen where the flowers were insane. I was like, like when I think of this wedding, I think of the flowers. That is a great use of flowers.
100%.
Is it worth the price? I don't know, but I remember it.
Okay, next, your coastal Floridian girl must be near the ocean or have a pool at the venue. I also cannot have any rules around noise. Like I've been at way too many weddings when it's just starting to get fun and then everyone gets kicked out, and that is just no fun for anybody. We're definitely going to have a DJ, not a band, and we will have a DJ saxophonist. So when we were in Chamonix, we literally had the best night of our lives at a club that had this girl saxophonist that was riffing off of the DJ, and it was a show. And it was something, I'm actually going to try to get that exact girl if we get married in France.
Love it.
Videographer, this is actually the only thing locked in about my wedding. A video is very important to me to watch back. And so that will be really awesome. It's actually a friend of mine that has a luxury wedding video company. So that was a pretty obvious decision to make. Amazing food at the venue because it's very important to Matt and I. As many photos as possible before the ceremony, which we talked about. Married into the church. I am Catholic, and that is something that I want to instill in my marriage. We're going to do a choreographed first dance because I do not know how to dance, and I would actually look like a fool if I didn't learn how to dance before the wedding. Wardrobe changes are actually the number one most important thing to Matthew. He's very excited about his different outfits and different shoes.
I so see that for him.
Themed rehearsal dinners I think are so fun. I love when people kind of play off of the something blue. I love when there's like a theme to it. Just gets people involved. I'd like to rework my mom's wedding dress into an outfit throughout the experience. And then last but certainly not least, before this camera dies, I pray that Mr. Matthew performs One Less Lonely Girl for Me by Justin Bieber.
I honestly don't have any words. Would you actually want that to happen?
He saw this yesterday and he was like, there's literally no shot in hell, but I think he'll surprise me.
Oh my God, guys. I just think that was the craziest thing I've ever read in like a while.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for it. It's going to be the best day of my life. Okay, with that concludes our first episode of the Dream Wedding series. Whether you're planning a wedding, just interested in weddings, just want to hear the tea about my wedding, we're so happy you're here. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and there's a lot more where this came from.
Talk to you next week.
Love ya. Bye.